welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Newman. I'm here with my friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman. We are also here with our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. And listeners, it's been a while since we've been here. I know we've had a few weeks off, but it's because we have a lot of big news. Actually, before we get to the news, we're going to talk about who's on the show today.
Sure.
We have Gary Lightbody from Snow Patrol.
Mr. Lightbody.
That's right. They got an album out called Wildness. They're on tour right now. Is that how you refer to them?
I don't know, man.
Mr.
We're
Lightbody.
all out of it right now. This has been crazy.
So if you're listening to this, we're going to get to Gary in a bit, but if you're listening to this, please know that we've been worked to the bone.
We're all pieces of shit right now.
we're squeezing this in.
I feel like Mike feels real good, though. I don't feel good.
I don't
feel like Mike feels good, which makes me feel even worse.
I just came off a big interview, so I'm feeling
That's
pretty
true.
jacked.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
for listeners, there's a lot going on. So a couple things. First of all, we did a live show a little bit ago for Just for Laughs. I thought it went great. Everyone came out. Thank you everyone who came out to that. I think we'll talk more about that in another episode when we have the Reggie Watts interview for you guys. But the other thing that we're doing, and something that we announced at the live show, is that we're doing a TV show for Crave TV.
Yeah.
Premiering December 21st. Big deal.
It's very exciting, and that's why we haven't been podcasting lately.
Yeah. 8 episodes, 8 feature conversations with huge guests. I just sat down and talked with one of them. Mm-hmm. She's going to be on the show.
They built us a set.
They built us a damn set. 8 digital desserts where Shane talks to celebs and notable people.
So that's been taking up all the time, really.
And Max, you have a fucking album coming out.
Yeah. You know what?
Exciting.
I got to say that back in the spring, I think, when we originally had the conversation about this TV show idea, and we were looking at the calendar and when everybody was available to shoot and the crew and et cetera, they said, okay, we can shoot this show probably end of September, early October. And then manager Ash said, that's probably the worst possible time for you to ever do this idea. And I was like, it'll be fine. You know how I say that? It'll be fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it wasn't fine. No, it ended up being kind of like the craziest time because we've had to do a ton of promo. We've been home for the most part, but things in Arkells world are kind of crazy. And also, doing a television show for the first time is a learning curve. Like there's things that you think you know, but you don't know. There's bumps in the road that you don't expect. And
anytime it's your first day doing anything, it's always high tension and weird, and you're trying to act like it's not. Yeah. Then it creates more.
Yeah. So it was
weird.
But I think it's going to be awesome. Like I do have faith that the people editing the show will make it look great. I won't be around. I'll be on tour.
Yeah, you leave. So we had to shoot in this window because you're leaving on tour. It's been. I have a baby coming.
Well, this is it. The craziest shit. Like you have a baby coming. 2
days overdue.
You have a very young baby right now.
Yeah,
I'm about to have a baby in 2 days.
Max!
No, an album.
Your record.
Yeah,
you old
Still,
dog.
that's cool.
Yeah. So Shane, why are you so tired?
Just a lot of stuff going on. I've been dealing with some real estate issues.
This is a great sentence.
Nothing to do with any of our creative work.
No, it's really been stressing me out, and like.
Oh my god! And I didn't ask you about it today.
No,
sorry.
I'm fucking real on pins and needles. If that's an expression.
Man, sorry, I didn't ask.
No,
you
no,
about
I
this.
don't.
Okay, I'll have to ask you about it. Do you want to get to it now?
No.
Okay, cool.
It's like all I've been thinking about.
Oh no,
is this thing. Yeah.
Okay,
we'll talk off.
But we're getting through it, and I think I'm going to be very excited for people to see the show because I think it's going to be cool.
I do. I think so. I think it's been a learning curve, and honestly, only the people that listen to this podcast will know that we're talking about it. Hopefully, the people that I think there's over 1 million subscribers on Canada's premier streaming service, Crave.
Yeah.
They might just be seeing it for the first time. They're like, "What's up with these guys? We recognize the dude from the band Arkells, but what's with the other 2 guys?" And we hope that doing over 100 episodes of this podcast prepared us somewhat for the show. But for you listeners, let you know a secret. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing.
No, we had no idea.
The first few that we shot were, I'm not going to say a disaster, but we certainly didn't have the flow that you've come to know us for.
It's weird because, because we talk to each other all the time as friends and on this podcast, but when there's cameras rolling, it's just a whole different thing. Like talking to you guys right now, it feels so easy compared to the first couple episodes of that television show, just because there's just the 3 of us in this room right now.
It was laborious in a way that wasn't very fun. You were sick as well.
Oh yeah, I never get sick. In the first 2 episodes, I was sick. So
yeah, and you can imagine, like, they build us this set. We walk on, the lights go up. There's all these crew guys. There's all these. I mean, if you go to our Instagram at Mike on Much, you can see some behind the scenes stuff. But to your point, Max and Shane, I know you're burned out right now. Max, I know you're burned out right now. I think much like the show, We're going to pep up this energy, and this podcast is going to be great. And I hope that people love the TV show.
No, I feel so good to be podding with you guys. They're just old school style. OG.
Getting back to our roots.
Yeah, it's great.
And you got a record coming out.
Yeah, so the last couple weeks, I mean, there's just been a lot of planning, trying to do fun promo things, to launch the record. So if you follow Arkells on Instagram, you know what's going on. But the last 2 days, I've had to be up at 6 a.m. to do...
I saw on your Instas, you're on all these morning shows.
Oh, my God. Doing the morning show circuit.
Does that mean no late nights with Dan Hamilton?
No late nights with Dan Hamilton. I've had to go to bed early. But the one funny thing that was the first day in this building, actually, there was this guy, really nice guy, who's a Raven Master. Do you know what that is?
Of course we know what Raven Master is.
I think I could be getting that term wrong. But he's like this British guy.
I can almost guarantee you are. Yeah.
Is that
Raven Master?
Is that a title in the union? I got to check the book. What's a Raven Master?
Look it up. Raven Master. I think it's a Raven.
Like that's a position here at a television station.
No. He was a guest. He put out a book, I think.
Oh.
He's like a British character wearing a weird old-timey British outfit. And he's got a big belly. Do you know what I'm talking about?
What? Are you sure?
Look up Raven Master.
Sure this wasn't a fever dream or you weren't sleeping?
I think it was a Raven Master. Look at the word Raven Master.
I'm typing this in right now. Raven Master.
Yeah.
And like this is his celebrity name?
No.
Raven Master book.
I think that's what
Oh my goodness.
Let's see what he looks like.
Yeah, you described him pretty accurately.
Did I get him?
Yeah.
What is a Raven Master?
That's the Raven Master.
Oh, there he is. So, my life with the Ravens at the Tower of London. This is what he is. And his book publisher guy was a dude from Hamilton, but like just like a nice British guy. But it was just like, so I saw him, and then we did the show, and the first thing in the morning, I don't really like talking to anybody. I need about like 2 hours to kind of get into the flow of the day. So that happened. And then the next day, like this morning. There's the Raven Master again. We're just on the same...
Oh, you and Mike D are doing press, but the Raven Master's on the same press schedule.
He's on the same press schedule.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So every day we're seeing the Raven Master, and then I was like, hey, you know the thing. And by the way, this guy couldn't be a nicer guy, but it's one of those things where it's like, you have enough energy to make small talk once with a person, but twice is just asking. So I kind of hid in the corner, and then I was trying to hide in the corner, just to not talk to anybody. I just didn't want to talk to anybody until we actually had to go on air. And then this crew that works for Screamers. Do you know that production?
Yeah, it's like a Halloween haunted house thing you go through.
Yeah, exactly.
Very scary. Did you go as a kid? No. Oh, Screamers was like the shit when I was a kid.
And these guys are kind of like magicians or something.
Oh.
Anyway, they recognized me, and they're big fans. They went to the rally, and they're like, hey, can we do a magic trick on you? And I was like, okay. But I was so tired, and I was like, not. And they had makeup on, and they're like kind of scary looking, and I just like was not in the mood for magic.
Too much pressure to react.
Well, this is it. It was like 7 a.m., and they want to do magic tricks on me. And so they get... like this, he's like, hold this nail, and it's like a 3-inch like metal nail. He's like, it's a real nail, right? And they're like, their buddies filming it, and I am like, yeah, it felt like a real nail. And then he puts it up his nose.
Oh jeez.
I
don't like that kind of magic.
Oh, and it totally grossed me out, and it was a very impressive trick. And I was just like, get me the fuck out of here. This is just too much for
You're saying this out loud.
No, in my mind. By the way, if either the Raven Master or the Magic guys are listening, you guys are super fucking nice and very talented, and I am sorry for being just a morning grouch. But anyway, and the day kind of went on from there, and there's just been a lot of interviews, and for the most part, everyone's been really nice. Everyone's excited about the record, and I'm just complaining right now, so I'll stop that. But then here's the thing: so we had an interview just now, which I watched.
We're sitting on the set where this interview just took place, which will be one of the 8 feature Crave conversations.
Can I say who it is, or
no? I think Crave and all them want to do a big announcement for the 8 names.
Okay, cool. Well, in any case, this certain celebrity walks in who's younger than me, way more accomplished, and treats everybody way better. She walks in the room
like than you do.
Than me. Oh my god! And then I just felt like a fucking shithead because she walks in the room, she shakes the hand of every cameraman.
That's overdoing it a little.
No, but it was genuine
in the coolest way. No. There was not a hint of like fakeness.
Like, she's like, give me some skin.
No.
I'm thinking of the coolest way possible.
Yeah. No, in the most like genuinely sincere way. Give me some skin.
It's a joke.
I know. And then I was just reflecting on my own day and be like, you're just a piece of shit, Max.
You're a piece of shit?
Me, yeah, big time.
Don't be so hard on yourself. How did the Raven Master treat people?
He was really nice. Yeah. He could have been nicer.
Did he say like hi to the crew and everything?
Probably.
You could learn a thing or two from the
Raven Master and this huge celebrity that we just had on.
I would love it if I'm watching you do press tomorrow and you're wearing the Raven Master's coat.
It's a cool will go. I recommend. What is a Raven Master?
I don't know. This is the first we've
I got to read the
Can
book.
we say he's one of the 8? And we'll find out.
This show's got wings.
Gio, check out his book though. It just dropped.
What's it called again?
It's called The Raven Master. My stories of the Raven at the Tower of the
I'll tell you, this fucking Raven Master's got more press than our fucking Crave show right now. Oh, boys, it does feel good to be back to it.
It is great. This is good.
It's good. Actually, speaking of podcasts, you went on our friend of the pod, Auntie Donahue's
That's
podcast.
right.
I listened to a bit of it. Shane, did
I
you
haven't
catch
listened
any
to
of
it yet. No.
Oh, I heard you on it.
No, Max went on Ann's podcast to talk about podcasts.
Oh.
And he says so many nice things about us.
Oh, do I?
Oh, I'll listen for sure.
On my drive to basketball, I play on Monday nights. I was driving over to hoop, and so I had it on in the car. And inevitably, I figured at some point they would get to our podcast since you were speaking about podcasts.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe how nice you were about it.
I recorded that a long time ago. I don't remember anything.
Your opinions have since changed after shooting those 8 episodes.
What's Anne's reactions to it?
She was very nice. She said nice things.
Like what?
I'm going to sit here and recount it on my podcast how Ann and Max said nice things. Just go listen to Ann's. Go listen to Ann's. Yeah. But I'm only halfway through. I might have turned it off after I was like, okay, they've done talking about me.
Fair enough.
Do you think she'll ask me to ever go on?
I knew that was coming.
What would you talk? So her podcast is called Nobody Cares. I went on to talk about my love of Star Trek, specifically Star Trek: The Next Generation. Max went on to talk about his love of podcasts. Shane, if Ann did invite you on,
I would absolutely be the best guest to have to talk about alt comedy and the art form behind it.
Sure.
Yeah, and she's a comedy nerd too.
Yeah.
She talks a bit about that in the conversation with Max.
Like Nathan Fielder, Eric Andre, all the editing tricks employed, all the ways to do it. It is like a magic trick in a way. It is.
That's a good time.
No, I'm not pumping myself up. I'm talking about like how the really great people do it.
Yeah.
Just because you play basketball doesn't mean you're Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But you can respect the art form and break it down.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, what else is going on? I mean, we've promoted the show. We had the live show. Again, we will talk more about the live show, which was an experience unto itself. This has been a crazy stretch. All the prep we should have been doing for the Crave show went into actually preparing this live show with Reggie Watts. And then it was like, oh, yeah, and you're shooting on Monday.
I know.
One thing I do want to say, though, it feels like we've just come on here for a good 10 minutes and complained.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys, I'm so grateful that we have a TV show. It's kind of insane.
It is great.
Like, what a weird, wonderful, crazy thing to get that after doing 100 episodes of a pod.
To be honest, I think I took it for granted. I was like, yeah, whatever, TV show. Like, I didn't really think about it. And then when we got to set, I was like, oh, yeah, they built this whole fucking thing for us. And there's all these camera guys and there's like producers and stuff.
Yeah.
I really took it for granted. So, yeah, I'm excited to see the end product.
We can't wait till all 8 are edited and ready to go, and you guys can binge them for the holidays because they'll all be out at once, dropped to be streamed on December 21st.
Last thing that I just want to tell you is that I met a very famous celebrity in Austin, Texas this past weekend.
What?
David Byrne, Talking Heads.
I saw that on your Instagram.
Yes.
I thought, honestly, if I'm being honest with you guys, that selfie would get a lot more likes. Mm-hmm. I thought it would really blow up the Instagram. David Byrne, in certain circles, is a big deal. So, like, for instance, your wife messaged. She said, "Oh my God, that's cool." And like,
that's like her favorite. Though.
Well, this is it. So people who are into like cool music from the 80s and into like kind of art culture know and would get really excited about that post. But it was definitely one of those times where like I saw him backstage and I was like, I'm definitely going to get a photo of. And I kind of interrupted him like when he was like in the middle of like dealing with something that had to do with his show.
Oh, geez.
It was one of those. I mean, he ended up being very nice. He actually lived in Hamilton for a couple of years as a kid. And I asked him, like, where? And he's like, up on the top part. I was like, the mountain? He's like, yeah, up on the mountain.
Wow. I didn't know that about him.
And the reason why I got a folding bike to bring on tour back in the day was because I read his book. And he and his whole crew have folding bikes. Because the reason why I recognized them is that he rode into Artist World on his bicycle. So, like, here's this dude with white hair. He's, like, dressed kind of cool. Like, riding around backstage. I'm like, who is... Oh, of course that's David Byrne. Who else? And then all of his crew that he's with, and he has, like, a big band, are all riding on...
His own Champagne Boys.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
All on folding bikes.
And he, but anyway, it was that one. I was like, I hate, do you mind if we just get a quick photo? We're big fans. And I told him how much I like folding bikes. He's like, cool, no problem. But he did the thing where he went to go, his like tour manager needed to ask him a question, but it wasn't like a 1-word answer kind of question.
Oh, God.
So they were working at logistics.
You're sitting there awkwardly.
And I was just standing there for like 2 minutes and it felt like 2 hours and you're just like, and then finally we did the selfie.
While you were standing there in the 2 minutes, did you like look at texts and
well
stuff?
Mike was with me, so me and Mike are just like, so cool bikes, and we like pretend to be checking out the specs on the bikes. We're like, oh yeah, I like the pedals on that or whatever.
Kicking the tires, adjusting the seats. Like, yep, it's a good bike.
Great bike. Oh yeah, it's black. Cool. Yeah. So anyway, that's my David Byrne story. Behind the curtain, man.
And I think he suffers from not looking like the way you'd expect.
Why?
His
suffers?
Yeah, because I find Bill Murray always looks like Bill Murray.
It's a tragic affliction.
No, when you don't look like yourself, right? Like, you're not going to be as popular, like, on Instagram if you get a picture.
I don't think he's that recognizable compared to Bill Murray, though.
You're saying if you ran into like Ray Liotta and you get a selfie with Ray Liotta, but people don't recognize it as Ray Liotta?
Yeah, if he doesn't look the way you picture him. David Byrne, people picture a certain way.
Well,
and in your photo, I was like, that's David Byrne? I had to look at it for like 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think David Byrne, people's image of David Byrne is literally from the documentary Stop Making Sense in 1984. That was like 40 years ago or whatever, or 30 years ago, or however many years ago.
But his music people still listen to today.
Yeah. And he's just like, he's actually a very good-looking older guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying he suffers from being ugly. It's just he doesn't look the way you think he looked.
Yeah, like from 1984.
Exactly. I'm just explaining to you why your post didn't do well.
Okay. Thank you. Why your post didn't
He's handsome as hell.
Man. Okay.
You should be a social media consultant, Shade.
I am. This family tree, I am. 6,000 followers in 6 months.
Yeah, you walk. It's like, listen, honey.
I do. I'm consulting another guy here. His name is Troy. He runs a fitness account, and I'm his social media consultant.
Are you charging a fee?
No, it's always free.
It's always free.
You put it out in the world, and it'll come back to you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it.
Oh, man. Well, guys, again, it's been great to sit and talk with you, but we need to get to this interview because today on the show, we have Garret Lightbody, who is the front man for Snow Patrol.
The Bodster.
It's a different nickname every time. No, I love it. Yeah. The Light Man. Yes. So I sat down. Well, you know what? You always talk about the reason we got Noel Gallagher is because Greg Stewart was a huge fan. So it's like if someone's a big enough fan, I will tell you, Greg Stewart was such an advocate of Snow Patrol. He loves his band. He was like...
He prepped all the questions, basically.
Yeah, I loved it because Greg was like as we're going through questions, he's throwing out things. He's giving us like some backstory articles. And I will say that Greg did not lead us astray because I thought Gary was a great conversation, a super thoughtful guy. And like leading up to it, I hadn't listened to a ton of Snow Patrol. I obviously know the hits, like Chasing Cars. Obviously, that was very popular because it was on the big Grey's Anatomy scene where I think Izzy's being carried out or whatever. I'm not an expert on Grey's Anatomy or necessarily Snow Patrol, but leading up to the interview, I listened to a bunch of Snow Patrol.
Really, really good band.
Yeah, man. So, guys, congrats on the show.
Thank you.
Excited to be doing it with you guys. Excited for all of our listeners to see it when it is out. Do you want to get to Garret Lightbody?
Let's do it.
Just give me a quick level.
Yeah, 1 2 1 2.
Nice. Yeah, my day's been all right, man. Busy, but got to work, you know. When did you get into town?
Sunday night, late.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I had yesterday walking around.
Yeah, just hanging around in the city.
Yeah, it was lovely.
You been to Toronto a lot?
Yeah, we've been a few times before. I don't know how many times exactly, but it's been quite a few times. Yeah.
Stand out as a city that you enjoy, or is it just like the others?
My guitar tech, Coatsy, lives here, so this is one of our family homes. He's been my guitar tech for 21 years.
Wow.
So
these are hometown shows for him when you guys hit Toronto.
Yeah.
Nice. It's funny whenever I talk to touring musicians and people that spend a lot of time all over the world. You know, I guess every city you go to, people are like, "Oh, do you like our city?" Which is kind of this inherent needy thing that people have. But are there any cities where you're like, "No, this city is shit"?
Oh, I don't think I would say it was shit, but I might parse it out with, it's fine, it's good. so maybe that gives it all away anyway, but no, I don't have to do that here.
Yeah. All right, well, I kind of want to start with songwriting because between yourself and Johnny, you guys are some real songwriting heavyweights. And I guess functionally, I'm interested in how songwriting works within your band. The dynamic between you guys and like, is it sort of collaborative with everybody, or is it like you bringing in sort of a fully formed idea and then letting people build around it, or are you guys writing collaboratively?
It's sort of evolved and devolved over the years and sort of concertinas in and out with the way this album happened was I brought a bunch of ideas, at various times, because it was a long process. It was 5 years in total.
And you're a pretty prolific writer anyway.
Yeah, I have been for other things and times gone by for Snow Patrol, for sure. And a prolific music writer, for sure. Lyrics, not so much these days. I tend to wait until I know I'm going to record a song before I write lyrics on it.
So you have your melody, you have your structure.
Melody, structure, everything's recorded. Music's generally recorded before I'll start writing lyrics, because the lyrics take an awful lot out of me, and especially took a lot out of me on this record, because it was very personal, and I didn't want to write a whole bunch of stuff and then go, well, that's not going to make the record. So, but as far as the initial ideas go, I take them to Garret, Jacknife Lee.
Yeah.
And him and I work on them to begin with, and that's been the case for the last couple of records, where him and I will start the song together, and then everyone will, once we have a kind of a structure, then everyone will come play on it and write their parts and come, it wouldn't be, we don't tend to jam that well. We're not a jamming band. We don't come up with ideas and that, but I find it, I don't really like rehearsing at the best of times. Because I find playing the same song over and over again kind of starts to make me feel like it doesn't inspire me. So I tend to sit on my own and write the idea, then take it to Garret, and then everybody.
So, but Johnny is doing writing as well, but you guys don't typically write together.
We will write together we've written together for a lot of other artists. We've written together.
Right. Okay.
We did a few writing sessions for the Snow Patrol record. One of the songs that we did together made this record. That was Empress.
Yeah.
Everything else on the record ended up kind of being me starting it, and then Garret, kind of me and Garret. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, Johnny is an extraordinary songwriter. I mean, his pedigree is well known all around the world, of course. But I think I've just got used to, for Snow Patrol stuff, I've just got used to doing it. It's 25 years next year.
Of course.
I've just got used to doing it by myself, and in a way, starting it by myself. I tend to want to do that. Just standing on stage. I kind of want to feel not ownership in a billionaire real estate kind of magnet kind of a way, but
sure.
Like I want to feel like this is something that kind of came from me.
Yeah, and that is special. You said 25 years, and I guess time is sort of, it's the way we perceive it. But for you, was it like, oh, that 25 years went by in a flash, or are you like, fuck, it was a long time?
It's funny. Yeah, there's I think both, because there's part of me that thinks, geez, where did all that go? And then there's other part of me very well aware of that the time was moving very slowly at times, especially in the last five years. Time moved very slowly. I thought there wouldn't be another Snow Patrol record at a lot of times. I thought that I wasn't going to be able to write songs anymore for Snow Patrol. I didn't know why. I didn't know where the songs were. I didn't know where the lyrics were. Couldn't find them.
Well, I mean, with writer's block, I guess my question is there any parts of the process of that you found in these last 7 years that have helped with sort of battling writer's block and finding those lyrics again? Is it just workmanlike? Like I just have to force myself to do it, or were you waiting for something to sort of move you and feel like you needed to write it down?
Yeah, there's a lot more work went into this record than any other Snow Patrol record.
Sure.
And I definitely needed to do that work. It wasn't going to happen any other way. But there was also moments of inspiration that made the knowledge I was going to have to work hard easier. I Youth Written in Fire, Don't Give In, were both written in a flash, written in like a burst of inspiration. Youth Written in Fire, I mean, I've spoken about, was written inspired by the Nick Cave song Jesus Alone, which I listened to on repeat and then something started to jar loose in me, and I realized that there was words about to happen. And Garret, being the extraordinary producer that he is, left me be for half an hour, and in that half an hour I wrote the song. It's start to finish, no lines thrown through lyrics, no editing, which has become a big part of my songwriting process. A lot of lines rubbed out, or like really, really hardly rubbed out, so that no one could ever see them again. They're so badly written. And that song all came at once, and it sort of inspired the next kind of phase of the writing. And a few years before that, Don't Give In kind of happened in the same way, and that inspired a whole bunch of writing too. Although a lot slower on both occasions. The songs that come after it. Yeah. You sort of think, oh, well, I've cracked it now. I'm going to write the next 5 songs in 30 minutes each. Yeah. And then it doesn't come, and you realize that was just an aberration of sorts.
You talked about scratching it out so no one can see what the lyrics were as you work through it. Do you find in demoing and sort of early stages of songs you're comfortable being vulnerable in showing, or do you need to have it sort of more finished in order to present?
Oh, I've shown people to the detriment of my mental health. I've shown people songs at times when they are well before finished, and that I shouldn't have shown them. And so hoping for a reaction that was positive, and then it's like, yeah, okay, well, and then your heart's broken, and so I have to get better at that, at sort of knowing when at the time to play somebody a song, because you can't, if you're going to take 5 years to make a record, you got to play somebody something at some point. Yeah, it's not going to be finished, but it maybe has to have maybe not the top hat and cane, but at least the shirt buttoned up, at the very least.
Can't come out in a pair of underwear and just exactly. Here I am. On our show, we've talked to actually Tom Chaplin from Keane about his addiction issues, and Frank Turner's been on the show, and he's been sort of open about his stuff. Mm-hmm. It seems like dependency is a reoccurring theme. I think maybe creatives in general, anyone that's sort of like sensitive and attuned to certain things. But have you ever drawn that connection, sort of, and what reasons would you think this keeps happening?
I think to write songs, you got to do it correctly. You've got to break yourself. You cannot write a great song without feeling as deeply as you possibly can. You can't do it. It can't be done. You can write hits like that. You can. I'm not saying the songs can't be big, but you can't write great songs without doing that. And I think the people that try to write great songs are the people that are going as far into the fire as possible. And I think eventually you can get consumed by it. I certainly felt like that many times. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that I am a great songwriter, by the way, just for anyone that's listening. I'm just saying that the pursuit of a great song is different from the achievement of a great song.
Sure.
And I think that I've, at the times when it's worked, you feel like 10 feet tall. You feel like a titan. You feel they were more than 10 feet tall. They weren't real as well, but anyway. And the times when it doesn't work, you feel the inverse. You feel so small, so insignificant, so useless. Impotent. You feel like you can't contribute to society, to your friends, to your family, to your bandmates. You feel you've isolated yourself because you feel like you're some kind of you're like some sort of leper that you can't you shouldn't be around people because they might catch what you have. You feel all these things that make you feel sort of insignificant and low, and I've been there many times with songwriting, and I can completely understand why people go to the furthest extreme, because I felt like doing that myself. I've just had people intervene at the right times for me. And I'm so grateful because I'm so glad to be alive.
And if you live in that state too long, it actually becomes perpetual in a way that actually seems bigger than it is, and it's indefinable, I think, in a lot of ways. If you've never been through it or you don't feel it, it's hard to explain it. Like you said, people are like, oh, why can't you feel the love and the fact that all these people think you're amazing? It's like, if you could, you would, and it would be easy, but it's something that I guess isn't easy, otherwise people would just sort of get out of their bad spots.
Yeah, because I feel it now. I feel that I feel so connected to my bandmates and my family, my friends, to the fans of the band again. They've been so positive about this record. I mean, I feel it all now, but there are times when you're disassociated from it. Sure.
What's the difference, I guess, as you've sort of gone through this 25-year career now and you've been on the road a ton? Is there a large difference between touring then and touring now, and sort of your outlook and mental health and all of that?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to protect my mental health now.
It wasn't a consideration before.
No, I didn't even realize that I needed to, that it was something that needed to be maintained. I think now I realize that it is. I mean, it's kind of an everyday effort. You have to make that effort if you want to stay vigilant and stay on top of it. I do all the practices that I've become very familiar in my day, and even then, sometimes you don't feel great. But I never have gone back to that dark place again. But since I've been doing this stuff, I meditate, I do qigong, every day, I try and stay fit and healthy. Eating right is, as you can see from my face today, it's covered in eczema. It's not easy on the road, but sometimes the things like that come up, and you just have to kind of not let it get you so down that it's going to take you back down into that place again. I feel just so an ocean away from where I was. I really do, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I think as well, just releasing a record after such a long time of not has really, really helped, because a lot of that feeling, all those feelings, were because of inertia. Actually having some momentum is very helpful.
Well, speaking of this record, you mentioned Jacknife Lee, who you're referring to as Garret.
Yes.
But for our listeners, Jacknife Lee is like a very amazing sort of celebrated producer, and he's worked on many of your records, and this latest one, obviously. Actually, I heard that in another interview that Empress, a song you mentioned earlier in our conversation, was inspired by his daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just interested in sort of that relationship, and what's his methodology in the studio? Why does he work for you, and what's the attraction to keep working with him? Aside just from the friendship, because it seems like you guys are close.
We're very close. His daughters are my goddaughters,
yeah.
And Johnny McDade and I are co-godfathers. And I've known him since they were born, or his eldest was born. So that's 16 years, and we've been working together since then, and we've worked through not just every Snow Patrol record, but Tired Pony as well, and we've done a whole bunch of stuff for movies.
He's your guy.
Yeah, we worked on other people's records, Taylor Swift's record together. And I mean, he's the. It's difficult to explain for anyone that. I'm sure there's people listening that know what a producer does. If people don't know what they do, it's kind of hard to explain, because there's so many different types of producer.
Sure.
There's ones that literally don't even come to the studio, and like they maybe arrive on the first day and then don't come for the rest of the recording session.
Yeah, you hear these stories about like Rick Rubin just laying on a couch.
Yeah, there's some celebrated stories of people that, and that's their method, that like not getting in the way of the band's sort of creativity or whatever. I don't really believe in that method, but it's certainly helped make some of the greatest rock and hip hop records of all time. That's for sure. But with us, we always kind of needed a kind of a guiding hand in the studio. Now that we have Johnny in the band for these last 10 years, we have someone that's extraordinary with the technological side of things, but certainly when we were first starting out and all through the first phase of the band, none of us even knew really how to work the equipment.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, we certainly knew we didn't know a lot. Garret, just from the get-go, is just a lover of music in a way that you don't necessarily. You'd think you would run into a lot of them, like people that just lived, breathed, every atom of their life was revolved around music. Garret is somebody that is sort of just immersed. Every day he's finding new music, seeking out new music, seeking out old music, buying vinyl every day. So when you go into his studio, you're kind of not just making a record, you're also listening to these treasures that, he's finding, like deleted albums from the 70s. And like we were listening to a lot of African music, William Onyebar, Fela Kuti. We're listening to Peter Gabriel. We're listening to like early Peter Gabriel stuff as well as us. And so we were listening to Nick Cave. We were listening to hip hop stuff. We were listening to the Staples singers. We're Pop Staples and Mavis Staples. And the breadth of the music that we were listening to was extraordinarily wide, and that kind of I think helps keep the inspiration flowing. We're not listening, you don't go in to make a guitar record and just listen to like sort of, whatever guitar music people are making at the moment. Although that was part of it, but I think it's important to us to try and move on with each record. Even though those movements may seem small or incremental, and we're not exactly, we're never going to make that sort of fully sort of dance record or whatever, but there are elements that sort of bleed into the music.
Yeah, you can pinch a bit from here, from there.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's what he brings. He brings, not only is he an extraordinary producer and can see the bigger picture, he's also really good at the details as well. He plays every instrument. He is in the studio before we get there and stays till after we leave.
Man, you need those guys.
As it seems sort of indefatigable, I mean, and that's, maybe something that you just don't see very often in any kind of form of walk of life, someone whose passion is kind of always burning, some kind of Olympic torch.
Totally. You've written for film and television, and I also heard that you'd said that movies are like your second love next to music. Like you love watching movies. Where does that come from? Were you like a kid that was at the theater like every weekend when you were growing up?
No, my folks didn't take me to the cinema very often. Really? I didn't start going to the cinema properly until I was probably old enough to kind of decide for myself. That's what I wanted to spend my pocket money on. Yeah. But I think the movies that I watched were mostly on TV. I saw Star Wars. I was born in 1976, and Star Wars was probably on the TV by the time I was 5 or 6, and I think I watched it on the TV, and when we finally got a VHS of it or whatever, or we recorded from the TV, I watched it a million times. And the first movie I saw in the cinema, my dad took me, which is very rare. It's the only time I remember my dad ever going to the cinema. He took me to see Return of the Jedi. Wow. And so that was my first movie I saw in the cinema. Were you? Do you remember like the feeling of like, this is going to be amazing? Like, did you have that excitement? Like, I remember when I was a little kid and my dad would take me to go see like Ghostbusters 2 like all day in grade 3. I was doing a little 2 symbol and I was fucking jacked. And then it's like those memories are so visceral and you remember them forever. Did you have that with Return of the Jedi and going to a theater and sitting in a seat and the lights going down? Yeah, I remember every part of it. Yeah, I remember popcorn. I remember sitting with my dad. Like sitting with my dad in the cinema is a completely unique experience because it only happened the once. It is sort of frozen in amber in my mind as this amazing moment, father and son moment. Because I think all the things that he a lot of the things that he loved to do, he kind of fixing stuff around the house and working on the car and things like that, I just wasn't interested in. And so when we used to fish together, which is another kind of thing that we did, which I really enjoyed. But he shot pheasants and ducks and things like that, and I would never shoot something and make it dead. I also understand the hypocrisy of eating meat and not being willing to do that.
Sure.
I completely understand that hypocrisy. I'm just, if it makes me a wuss, then I'm a wuss. I don't care about that. I just don't want to. I think from an early age, and anything that I saw a cartoon of, I'm not willing to
take out of this world. Yeah.
There's too many ducks in cartoons. I was like, no, I'm not one of them. So, he would take me on like shooting trips and stuff like that, but I think I would probably pout for most of it.
Sure, not your scene. That's interesting. Just the idea of like, our fathers and mothers like sort of having these things that they're into and wanting to sort of bond with their kid over it. But if you're not into it, you're not into it. Like I can't do shit with my hands, and my dad's like really good with his hands. Like he could fix a car, he could put up a shelf, and it's like that's not the kind of thing that I do or that I'm necessarily good at or willing to learn. But I think sometimes it's always like, am I letting down a parent by not being interested in their interests? But then it's not really our responsibility. Like, where do you meet in the middle, and where do you find that bonding point with a parent? Yeah,
I used to get really jealous. Our next door neighbor, Garret, was really good. He was my age, and he right from he was a kid, he was all about cars. Everything was cars. Oh, okay. So him and my dad would he would be over, like, looking in my dad's car and be showing him things, and I'd be like sort of trying to kicking a football around the garden thinking, oh, my dad's got another kid. So I think only in those times when I sort of felt the jealousy, which is obviously a very sort of negative thing, but then natural. I'd probably go over and get like interested until I got bored, which is probably exactly. 30 seconds later.
What's going on with that carburetor?
I'm bored now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of sort of placement of songs in film and television, Chasing Cars and Grey's Anatomy was this sort of, I think, huge moment for North America for you guys.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, were you consciously trying to get placed? Did you know the minute it went in that you're like, this is going to be very big for us? Or was it like anything else? Like, oh, we're in some TV show in America and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, because I hadn't watched Grey's Anatomy. I think people think that I have something to do with the show. Sometimes they ask you, like, you're a Grey's Anatomy guy. I'm like, no,
it doesn't work that way. No. But you were probably trying to get songs placed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had, our publisher was, has a sync team to get syncs, as they're called, synchronizations to get on TV and film, and we were probably in amongst 100 other songs to get that slot in Grey's Anatomy, and they picked us, and then they send, they ask for authorization from us, and we say, yeah, sure. The only thing I've said no to throughout our careers is adverts. I won't ever do adverts.
You don't want to be in like a 30-second commercial.
I don't want to be in a commercial. But there was one time, and it was for a music device.
Okay.
Which I thought, oh, that's appropriate. But we've been asked loads of times for like cars and things. Sure. I don't want a song to be associated with that. But TV and film is something I watch all the time, and I would be a hypocrite if I was to say no.
Right.
You can't use it in a TV show. Why not? So it went on the show, and then it was the middle of the night in the UK when it aired in America and Canada, and it was. We woke up the next morning and our Chasing Cars was outside the top 100 on the American iTunes chart, and it was number 1 when we woke up.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's one of those experiences that's so rare, like literally. And you guys you'd been together, you'd had this band since 94.
Yeah.
So then we're jumping ahead a decade, I guess, about, right? And then to have that kind of like, whatever, I'm doing air quotes, overnight success, like you said, to go from outside the top 100 to number 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, Final Straw, which came out in 2004, had been a hit in around Europe and had got to like gold status here. It was about 500,000 copies in the States, which is a hit as far as we were concerned. It's massive compared to what we'd done before. So we were having some success in playing bigger and bigger venues, and then Eyes Open came out in the UK and around Europe and stuff, and went to number 1, and it was exciting, but it hadn't kind of quite got there yet in the States, and then it Grey's Anatomy kind of pushed it over the line, and things went mental for us for after that. You know, the Final Straw tour was about 18 months, year and a half. The tour after Eyes Open, 100 Million Suns tour. Can't say my own album titles. 100 Million Suns. That was about the same. So compare that to the Eyes Open tour, which went on for over 2 years. You know, it was just because dates just kept getting added and added and added, because more and more places kind of started to open up for us, and Chasing Cars had a massive impact, and Grey's Anatomy was a big part of that. It was the song that kind of took us around the world, and we just followed it like kind of puppies, and it was great because we got to play places we'd never played before. You know, we got to play big places in the States for the first time, and we got to play in Southeast Asia and South America, and you know, a few times in Australia.
That's the sort of beauty of those, not like a cheat code, but a break that big, is then all of a sudden you're in all of these situations that maybe you wouldn't have been without.
Yeah, I know. And you know, we've had songs on TV shows. We've had songs on Grey's Anatomy since then, you know what I mean? And they've not had that impact. It's still one of those things that just
perfect
like
confluence.
It was a confluence of events. It was the last song on the second season, which I believe was their biggest season.
That scene was like a big moment.
I think everybody died or something.
Yeah.
It's like the whole cast died at that moment. And you know, people were like, you know, sort of emotionally attached to it, and it sort of, you know, it kind of took off. But we've been on so many shows since then and before then that it didn't have that resonance, you know. So it's not like getting on a TV show immediately helps your career. It was just, that was a kind of a 1 in a million.
Yeah, it's an unrepeatable sort of thing, or everyone would do it, I imagine.
Right.
As we wrap, we talked a bit about your father, and I was watching the video for Soon, which it was a really sort of like, it resonated with me, the video, and I thought it was a really interesting choice, and it seemed very personal to you. Obviously, it was your home movies. You're watching these movies with your dad.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about the idea of sort of like looking back and the way that sort of people deal with nostalgia and just how they frame their own lives. Are you someone who tends to maybe look back at the past, and like often do you visit it? Does it inform sort of your present, or are you someone that likes to look forward and sort of stay very present and go, I don't really want to unpack, you know, these memories, these things that make up my life?
One of the biggest problems in my life, I think, has been either dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, and it's something I've tried to address in recent years. Since I got sober a couple of years ago, I've really tried, you know, I think with the various practices that I've been doing, it's kind of helped kind of ground me a little bit more in the present, but it's still, you know, sometimes I get, you know, one lost, and I developed kind of OCD over the years, where I, you know, kind of loop on something that I'm worried about, and then it becomes this big thing that, you know, what's the point in worrying about it? There is no point. However, try telling that logic to your to your looping brain. It's
exactly.
It's caught in that, you know, it's the record skipping, you know, you're coming back to that same place again and again. So I think in the past I've struggled with that a hell of a lot, looking at the past and worrying too much about the future. But as time goes by now, I'm feeling a lot more rooted in what's actually happening in the present moment. In terms of nostalgia, which is a slightly rosier thing, a slightly different thing. I enjoy it from time to time. I'm actually thinking about writing a book about Snow Patrol, seeing it's 25 years next year. I wanted to kind of write a warts and all kind of retelling of our story, and let all the people that band, just band member that we parted company with on not great terms,
Sure.
and management that we've parted company with on not great terms, and things like that. Let people tell their stories the way they feel them, the way they feel them still, and the way they felt them at the time.
Would you reach out to?
And I will, yeah.
So they'd have their side of events
exactly,
and your side of
100%,
events.
100%. I'd want to do it. I'd want to do it in the right way. I don't think it's fair to kind of gloss over or make some kind of rose-tinted spectacles retelling of a career.
And then it was great, and then we went to this, and it was great, and then we had a little bit of a setback, but then it was great again.
Yeah, exactly. I think people would be far more interested to hear what actually went on rather than a version of it that leaves out the tougher stuff. But I haven't done it yet, so don't hold me to it or anything. But I'd really love to do it. So in that sort of sense, I will be looking back at the past, I guess. But hopefully I'm able to see it now better than I actually saw it when it happened. Because I think I was just riding it like some of the times like the guy in Dr. Strangelove for the
like the bomb?
riding the bomb. Just waving my hat going, whatever happens, happens. You don't have much control over it when you're kind of on tour kind of constantly. I think that was part of the problem, is feeling that lack of control.
Joel Walsh from the Eagles, I don't know if you ever saw that documentary about the Eagles, but he has this quote, and he's quoting somebody, and I forget who the original quote was, but he's like, when you're living your life, it sort of seems like chaos, and it's only when you're at the sort of the back end and you look back that it looks like this like finely crafted novel. It's like the tapestry is perfect, but when you're in it, it's like, what the fuck, what? Okay. And you don't know because you can't contextualize it when you're in it, but when you look back, you go, oh, it's like a perfect novel. That was supposed to happen and that happened and it led to this.
Yeah, that is true. I wouldn't change anything, really. I wouldn't change the 10 years that we had at the start of no hits, no success, sleeping in the back of the van on top of the gear, or sleeping. We used to ask people in the audience if we could sleep on their floor, and that people would let us sleep on their living room floor for the night, and playing to one person, all that stuff. If we had success, certainly speaking just for myself, if I had success right off the bat, I would be forgotten, certainly, by now, if not dead. That's for sure, because I would not have been ready for it. And I think a lot of bands probably aren't ready for it. I don't think anybody's really ready to be successful or famous or have a whole bunch of money suddenly, because if you didn't have any of those things beforehand, how can you be ready for it? You think you're going to be ready for it. A lot of people just want to be famous these days rather than actually want to be famous for something. And I think once it happens, you realize that that's not what you want. What you want is to actually do something.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, man.
All right.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. That was great.
Welcome to the dessert, our first one in quite some time, where our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, comes in here and lays it down. I don't think I've ever said that before on a podcast.
I like it.
Yeah.
Here get laid, boys.
Lay it on us.
So, yeah, for our listeners, Shane looks
tired.
Very tired.
Yeah. What I'm going to talk about is the live show and then lead into the show we filmed.
I just don't want to spoil like us all kind of collectively telling our experiences of the live show leading into the Reggie interview in like 4 episodes.
I don't have any story from the live show.
Okay.
You killed it.
My story is just that I did so well. That's it.
Okay, go.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
So I did very well during the live show. I was basically Richard Pryor reincarnated. And I was feeling very good about it.
Yeah.
Of course, when you put yourself on a pedestal, you're bound to come crashing down. So basically, within 2 days, we had to do the Crave show. I'm pretty high on my own supply, and I go to talk to Mike about some ideas that I have for the Crave show. And then it doesn't go well, that conversation. And then Mike and I are, we both suffer from our own unique brand of neurosis, and or is it neuroses?
Whatever.
And then the vibe is just horrible. So then I'm not going to get into it, but I call Max. I'm like, listen, I got a real bad feeling about tomorrow. Vibe's going to be bad. He's like, why? I'm like, well, I had this story planned, and now I feel like the vibe is ruined for it. He goes, what's the story? I go, I guess the premise is I was scared of Mike, and I did something stupid. And Max is like, don't tell it. He goes, just don't tell it. Or save it for later. I go, no, but
once the vibes have smoothed over.
I go, we figure out how to do a show.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, but we've already come up with a topic, and this is the perfect segue. Just to let people know, on the Crave show, originally off the top, it was kind of like this formula, where we kind of tell little stories, and then at the end, I have my dessert section. Anyway, I'm like, fuck Max. I go over the story with my wife. I'm like just ignoring the producer like an idiot because, again, I think I know comedy. I tell this story.
Oh, I remember
the first episode of the Crave show. And this is an important episode because this kind of sets the tone. Needless to say, as I'm sure people listening can predict, the story goes over worse probably than anything I've ever done. And on top of that, I had my wife and my stepmother and my child come in not only to see the set, but they were a part of my story, and I was using them
as props,
as human props, effectively. And they're witnessing this go down. And my stepmom has never, ever seen anything to do with the podcast. But when she saw that it was on a TV show, at first she was excited. And then she became mortified once she saw how bad I am at actual performing and what people think of my storytelling.
No, I mean, to be fair, we all sucked. And I was, as we mentioned earlier, I was very under the weather, and if I have one job, it's to be a bit of a morale guy, keep the vibes good and loose. I was not doing that at all, so I take responsibility.
But it was like, all things considered, you told me not to do it because it wouldn't go well. It did not go well. You weren't happy with me. Mike wasn't happy with me. No one was happy with me. And so I'm like, oh, I really got to kill this dessert. So luckily, everyone felt bad for me, how bad I did up the top. So I am getting some laughs in the dessert.
And tell them what's different about the dessert. You started to, and then you didn't.
What I do in the dessert is I tell people about the digital desserts. And often I try to bring in visual props to help me out. So when I was prepping the show, my wife could tell I was obviously very stressed from the conversation that Mike and I had. So I was just like, I need these props. Can you make sure I have these props? And if the props are wrong, the whole story is fucked. But of course, I think the props are going to be right that I have. So I get into telling the story, and I brought a gun and a note. So
very loose vibe on set. You better fucking laugh.
As if the tension couldn't get any worse, right? A huge part of this story revolves around the note I have. And I read the note, and the wording's wrong. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense at all into the story that I'm about to tell.
Who wrote the note?
Well, that's what I was wondering. I guess I'll explain the note. The note was something I wrote to the people inside my luggage to justify why I brought a gun to Montreal.
Yeah.
Which on a previous pod we talked about when we talked about my interview with Chris Red and Shane bringing the gun to do his digital dessert.
And then I look at the note. I'm like, this isn't the note I had in my luggage to Montreal. It's like, this is strange. This note is way too new. It's not crumpled.
But whose handwriting was it?
It was my wife's, but then I was like, oh, I might have gotten my wife to write the note, which might be true. And then I'm thinking about it for days and days. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I hate to accuse people of something they didn't do.
But I'm going to do it.
But I'm like, my wife rewrote the note.
And sabotaged you.
To sabotage me. I'm like, why the fuck would she do that? So I'm getting really paranoid. So I call my wife, Alex. I'm like, Alex, this is a stupid question. And don't be offended. But did you rewrite the note I asked you to? She goes, yes, I did.
She's been waiting for this phone call.
Question for weeks.
I'm like, she's like, yep, I admit it. I'm not even scared to admit it. I'm like,
she's crying. And
I just said hello.
I'm like, why would you do that? That's so fucked. My whole story was based around this note being the correct note. And she was like, I was scared that you'd get mad. And I was like, why would you be scared of me? I was like,
screaming at it.
I was like, this fucked up the whole show. I'm like, this is so important. We only have 8 of these shows, and each story is so important. This is so relevant. And then I was just thinking, I was like, this is so ironic because I had the story about being scared of Mike, which he got mad at, and then my wife is scared of me, and then I'm like, and then we had a bigger discussion. Honestly, then I was like, okay, the bigger problem is
hurt people, man.
Exactly. And I was like, the bigger problem is we can't be scared of our friends and family.
That's
and I was
true.
like, the problem, I'm not even mad that you changed the note. I'm mad that you're scared to talk to me, to tell me, oh, I've lost the note. And I simply would have said, okay, I have a picture of the note. Let's recreate the writing. Because really the important part, it wasn't the physical note itself.
No, it was the copy.
Which I have on my phone because we took a picture of it for Instagram way back in Montreal. So anyway, I thought it was funny in a ironic type of perfect circle way.
Yeah.
And now our listeners, when you watch the Crave show, that story, that note and gun bit will stay. They will now know, if you listen to this, you're not just one of the randoms on Crave watching it, they'll know the backstory.
Well, remember, you guys, I don't know if you do remember, but this was because this was the first episode, but you guys called me out on how weird the note was. You were like, that wording is so weird. Why would you say a very important skit? And I was like, remember? I say, but I don't say a very important skit in the real note. I have this bit about how I have an assistant, and it was very funny that I created a fake assistant for myself. But of course, that bit's not there. So you guys are like, haha, you wrote a very important skit, and you're kind of making fun of how stupid I am. And in the moment, I'm like, haha, yeah, here's why. And I'm explaining why I wrote a very important skit, even though I know I didn't fucking write that. And then crew guys are asking me about it, and I'm showing them the note, and we're all having a laugh. And it was like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
And anyway, I got to the bottom of the mystery, and I guess Mike and I are a lot more similar than we are different.
Got my headphones on.
Crave TV, December 21st. That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Gary Lightbody for coming on.
We're back, baby.
You can find us at Mike on Much on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you to everybody who's made everything happen with the Crave Show, with the live show, just for laughs. Everybody. There's too many people to thank, and hopefully we're just getting started, man.
Yeah, a huge thank you to Jenna Gregory and Tara Paquette for putting together the artwork. Webmaster Dan,
as always,
keeps this thing together. Greg Stewart, Randy Lennox, give him a shout out.
Damn straight.
And what else?
The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.